Actually, Joe might just be AI. He
Joe's
might just be
Joe's a robot.
I've been found out.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Feast or Famine with the Youngs.
We are the Youngs.
How is everyone doing today? How
are you?
Let's have
on this one-way
a
communication.
check-in. Everyone take a 2-second pause to reflect on how they've been feeling. I feel tired. That's how I feel.
I think I'm gonna be retired after this.
Retired?
Yeah.
Retired?
Yeah.
What's that
I'm gonna
mean?
quit everything.
What?
And go live in the mountains.
And you're gonna be Mr. Place with squirrels.
Yeah. I'll be the mayor of a town of 3.
Mm-hmm. Mr.
Me
Place
and the
with
2
squirrels.
dogs that live with me in the mountains.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we have a guest today, a very awesome guest. Hello.
Hi.
Am I introducing myself?
I forgot my line.
Line, please.
Line?
Yeah, I was looking at you like,
I
hello.
think this is like the epitome of the I don't know what I'm doing podcast.
Yeah.
Because
Anyway.
today is that day.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I think I showed up, 10 minutes ago? And
That's okay.
Joe is actually not technically a guest to us, though.
No.
Joe
he's
actually
not.
works behind the scenes a lot. For us.
Yes.
So
All right, Joe, go
who
ahead.
are you? What do you do?
who am I? I am Joe Tierney. I've been in the video production business for about 20 years now.
Old man. Longer than me.
But I've floated around a few different companies. I've worked in international marketing. I've worked in TV, broadcast. I've done live sports. I do a lot with YouTube and social media now. So, and my forte is motion graphics, animation, and a lot of the tech side of video production. So cameras, servers, media management. And then also helping you guys come up with a strategy to take YouTube by storm.
So
Take over the world, basically.
So basically, Joe Tierney is just hella dope.
So sometimes when you get comments on YouTube, sometimes it's Joe.
Yeah.
Right.
Like responses.
I think I hit the like button every now and then.
When I miss the like button,
Yeah.
hit the like button.
Yeah. So people, when they're like, oh, your YouTube channel, whatever, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, that's all Joe and Alex. So
Yeah,
when
she's
you-
very hands off.
When you hear us ever mentioning Joe, this is Joe.
I feel like we've been talking about, well, at least you and I have been jumping back and forth about you guys being on YouTube for 4 or 5 years now. And
Yeah, I wanted to
coming
jump
up
on
with
a
some
long
kind
time.
of strategy. And
I want to jump on a long time ago, and it was kind of tedious. I know just based on, you and I used to work together.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of the job was YouTube stuff.
yeah, there's no doubt that just functioning in YouTube is going to be tedious. It's just lots of work, and it takes a long time
I
to
was
get
like,
to a
and it
point
just
where
takes a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I feel like a lot of the conversations you have with people who have been successful on YouTube, it's like I started here and just did the same thing over and over and over again, making as many different kind of sandwiches as I can until somebody came by and bought one.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we are. We're building up we're throwing out a few ideas. We got some consistent ones that people like, and
Yeah.
hopefully it takes off.
yeah, I mean, that's what, Matt Johnson, when he was on, he said it took him 9 years before he actually made it and was a quote
Which I
unquote
was like-
YouTuber. I mean, I think
For those listening and not watching, I just did a major eye roll, but I'm quite the impatient
and that's
person
why we
these
brought
days.
that's why we brought Joe on, because we're trying to make sure we stay consistent the entirety of the time so that
Yeah.
we can try to expedite that process a little bit. I mean, we've been consistent since, was it January, February-ish?
Yeah, it's like January, February.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of growth.
We've almost got 500 videos on YouTube now.
Yeah, I mean that's insane. I mean, not a lot of YouTubers have that.
Oh yeah, I think anybody in our industry, I think we've got most of them beat.
Yeah.
As far as number of videos, and that includes shorts. But
Oh, nice.
yeah.
yeah, so we're doing the thing.
Anyway, we couldn't do it without Joe. Moral of the story.
So this is Joe. So that's not actually what we're talking about.
Yeah,
fully.
come back for next week's podcast. No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
that's it.
That's it.
Thanks
See
for
you
watching.
later.
Joe actually is. Joe and I I've known Joe for probably 15 years now.
Yeah, at least 15, yeah.
We drummed together, and then we actually worked together in the video world, video production world, and we'd always nerd out about tech stuff and new innovations. And I remember this conversation being had with you and I probably in 2016 or 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That long ago. It's 2023 now, and we're seeing the premonition of that conversation. And we're talking about AI.
Wait, what was the conversation? Because AI wasn't happening back then.
AI was starting to kind of be seen, and we were talking about augmented reality and how we predict that Apple might be able to implement that into new devices.
Which they already are.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, with LiDAR technology and...
Don't they have like, oh God, I hope I don't make myself look stupid here. Don't they have like a pair of like glasses that you can like see text come up or something?
The Vision Pro, which I think they announced like a month or two ago.
Yeah, it was this year. It's new.
Yeah, so it's not out yet. I want to say it's going to be like on the market in December or so, but they're just like with a lot of their products, they're trying to hit like a high-end market first to see how well it works and how many people implement it. And then basically that gives them the budget to start putting out a more consumer-based model.
Is it like literally going to be like zip, zip, like you hit like a little thing on the side? And like
No,
they
it's
just,
a
like, pop
full-on goggle thing that goes
so
over
you're
your
gonna
face.
look like a goofball.
Yeah, it's like...
but it's not something that you like walk around town with.
Oh, see, that was my perception of it.
I think the end goal is going to be that, like where everybody has some sort of device that they're wearing. And
well, then what's
instead
the point then?
Well, it gives you an augmented view of the world around you. And that kind of seemed like what they were aiming for. So like the Oculus and Meta, like it was a lot about like gaming and then, full virtual workspaces and virtual environments. And if I remember right from the presentation that Apple gave, it was more of like an augmented, supplemented workspace for what you're in. Like I want to say the tech that they crunched into this thing was like two parallel 4K displays that are like the size of an inch by an inch
that you can see in the goggles.
Yeah, like the pixel crunch tech that they're putting into this thing is insane. So if I would love to like put one on my face just to see what the clarity is.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you get a full parallax view of the world in front of you. It has all the sensors on it, so it knows what's going on. It has LiDAR sensors, so it can like take a picture of like the desk space in front of you, and everything like interacts and shadows, and it's kind of like the full future sci-fi tech environment right at your fingertips, and then everything is at your eyeballs. But then like you're just interacting with stuff with your hands. So you don't have to have like your standard 2-monitor or 3-monitor setup. I mean, you can throw displays wherever you want. You can have something across the room.
Okay, so it's like you would maybe like hook up your phone to it and like you could scroll like on Instagram.
That's
like
kind of, but that's also a limiting idea. So think of, you don't use your watch like you do your phone. You don't use your computer like you do your phone. It's the concept I think they're going for is just a completely different device structure in general. So just like when the iPhone came out, at that time you had PDAs that all had pins to interact with stuff, and they even ragged on it, where they were like, here's how are you going to interact with it, and then they were like, nope, we're not going to do that. You just use your finger. And so they like started really saying like, if we're going to have this device, we don't need a peripheral that's going to get lost or broken. We need to come up with a way.
Except now they sell one.
Well,
but it's really good.
Yeah,
it's a really good
that
one.
thing's amazing. And it has its purpose in the application. But I think that's what they're going for with the headset. Is it's supposed to be like this environment that you function in a workspace scenario. So you have like 5 people in a collaborative environment that all have this thing on. And so instead of everybody cramming around a single screen, or take something like the Adobe or AWS shared workspace environments, or a server-based environment where it's like I can share my files with you and we all have different computers. Well, now you have like the idea where you can have this entire shared workspace where everybody's functioning in the same environment.
That's insane.
Didn't you
I'd have to
experience
see
that
it.
at your last job?
No.
At Boeing.
What do you mean?
When you were at Boeing, you were talking about like you went down to the warehouse because you worked in the electrical engineering side.
Like.
And so you went down and they had these goggles, and this was 2017, 2018, I think. And you said that,
oh yes,
like you put they let you put the goggles on, and you see like
the plane structure,
like the structure, and everybody's wearing these. You can interact with this 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the thing where like it scans the plane and it tells you like exactly where the parts are? And...
Yeah, I forgot that I did that.
So that's essentially what we're talking about?
Yeah. So like it, honestly, if anybody has ever seen, if you're a Grey's Anatomy fan, this is what I think of when I see it. If you're a Grey's Anatomy fan, I'm going to ruin things for you. Spoiler alert. So towards like the end of when Christina Yang goes away, she goes and she sees, oh my God, Burke in like Canada or something. It's not Canada, but it's far away. And he, I don't know. He has created these like 3D hearts that it like pops up and you can like spin it with your hand and like you can like dissect the heart and like you can see it in front of you, and obviously like it's a projection. But that's how it was like when we did that thing at Boeing. We put on these goggles and we were all around this big table, and the plane just kind of like pops up in front of you, and we were able to like spin the plane like with our fingers like this
and like zoom in
and zoom out, and like it was for the electrical purposes to see like an X-ray vision of like where the electrical was going through the plane. And yeah, that was pretty cool. That's all I've like ever seen as far as that goes, but I'm like super intrigued to like
see where it's going,
see where more of that is going. Yeah. And like be more interactive with it, because that was just more of like touching, expanding, and like zooming out, zooming in type of thing.
Yeah, and that was like 5-6 years ago. So obviously the tech is getting better and better. But in that world, I foresee at some point in the next 25 years or sooner, probably sooner, everybody's going to have Tony Stark glasses basically and have like an active heads-up display that they can show, and like instead of having to pull their phone out.
Honestly, like that was my like my thought of like what Apple was doing, but I guess that's maybe a little ambitious.
I think that's probably like the next logical step for it. So the Oculus and like other competitors to that, it seems like the focus is on games and gamers and like time wasting. I mean, I don't want to like, slam gamers. Like, I'm not saying gaming is a waste of time, but it's more of a casual use device. So like I'm gonna put this on when I want to sit back and relax.
Yeah, which I mean, for gaming, oh my God, that could be so cool.
The next logic, but that's kind of where the priority market is.
That would be so fun to play as Sims. Because then you could be like you are in there with the Sims, like just chilling.
But cycling back to like the next logical step for it is to take it into more of a prosumer and business market.
Yeah.
And I know Facebook was kind of really trying to push that the last few years with like the corporate metaverse and virtual workspaces, and like you'd have your avatar, and it didn't seem like it stuck.
I think he was too ambitious with it.
Well, you kind of have to be ambitious. Like it's taking a leap, and I get where he was going, and I think it failed because it took like, I feel like it took the idea of how can we take a corporate workspace and gamify it, when really like I think what Apple's trying to do is they're going to say like, how can we prioritize aspects of work that need to be built upon? Like how can we ease how can we take existing processes that may be redundant or unnecessary, take them out of the mix, and give people more of a space to work with. I know the main reason I came to on here was we were talking about AI, and
that's a good segue what you just said there. I think that's partially why it didn't go through, is because of people's mindsets on that sort of technology. And like we're talking about,
it's kind of scary.
What we want to talk about is AI. People are afraid that it's going to take their jobs.
And like
iRobot vibes.
I have issues with the concept of AI. I think AI is more of like has a marketing issue than it is, because it really isn't. It isn't intelligent. It is automation, but automation has solved a lot of problems that we don't really even think about. So like calculations and computations and all that. Like a calculator and a computer were like people and departments. If you had calculations that need to be made, if you had to take technical data and you need to run algebra or discrete math,
this is where I check out.
Well, you would hand that over to somebody. Like if that was your specialty,
which it would never be.
Do you know how to do 2 + 2? Like you understand the concept of math.
Yes.
And you probably understand the concepts of basic algebra. Algebra is like, how can I put variables in math?
Yeah.
So like you'd have somebody who like kind of understood the baseline structure of it. It's like, I need to get from here to here. This is the data I have. These are the variables. You'd hand it over to somebody somebody who specializes in those calculations, and they would compute the data, give you back a spreadsheet associated with it. But that would be somebody who was on a company's payroll. That's like an overhead expense to make that happen, and it was necessary for the longest time. But now you have a calculator on your wrist or in your pocket at all times. Everybody and their brother has access to computational processes to do everything from The Sims to their math homework.
Yeah.
And it's not like that replaced those people. It sped up
The process
to make more and more and more stuff happen.
Yeah, and overall become more efficient.
Well, so like I heard this analogy on a Gary Vee post and talk that he was giving on this exact topic, and he made the analogy of tractors for farming.
Oh,
Before tractors became a thing, you plowed those fields by hand or with horses or mules.
Well, automation in farming is
Even more advanced
insane.
now.
So like, you can have...
You probably actually know a decent amount about this.
Well, I went down like kind of a doom scroll spiral on farming tech at one point in time, but it's like if I'm getting this right, let me know. But they have like 1, 2, or 3 towers that kind of like will triangulate a person's farm. So you're setting up like a cellular network for your own acreage, and then that pinpoints exactly the layout of your fields. You can go into an app and say like, this is the exact scale of this field right now. This is what it's growing. This is when it needs to be harvested. This is when it needs to be watered.
You can program your seeders to seed at the right ratios.
Yeah, and they have like drones that will fly, and like they use LiDAR and heat sensors to figure out what spots need to be watered and
Oh my gosh.
when. And so like the big harvester machines, the $250,000 million harvester machines. You can set those to run perfect lines and whatever, and you just need somebody sitting in the cab to just make sure it doesn't,
That's how they get their
crap
crops so
out.
straight.
That's
but
we need to get the McBee boys on here to talk about AI because they're killing it with that.
Who's that?
The McBees.
Oh, I haven't.
They're 100% like diving right into AI for
Automated
the farming.
farm.
That
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me with
Yeah,
them.
that's an amazing point where it's like it's taken over like that whole industry, but it's made it so you can put your focus elsewhere. There's less grunt work in just the harvesting side of things, where you can focus on developing. Well, so I'm diving into something like I know like 1% about.
And
like,
you can expand. You can expand your. And this kind of goes in all the industries, though. But you can expand your reach as far as what you can manage when you have more automation. Like farm, for example, you can plow more fields. When you have automation like that.
One of the things I can touch on that like I have been involved with in 20 years in motion graphics is with like After Effects and Maya and Cinema 4D. So there's so much that's going into automation in motion graphics that really has benefited the industry more than it's taken anything away. So like going back to that baseline concept of calculators and computers. So things that we take for granted in the production industry is the idea of a keyframe and an in-between. And even still in hand-drawn animation now, you have a keyframe or an in-betweener where somebody would say like, okay, this character needs to do this, and they're going to exactly this point within this many seconds, and then they hand it off to an in-betweener that like fills in all the gaps and understanding walk cycles. And you have all these templates associated with how characters move, how their necks bob up and down, how their eyes work, and all that. But in motion graphics, in After Effects, to get to the point where you could say like, I set my keyframe here, I drag my slider over to here, and I set my keyframe here, and then I just want this to move, and then from, if you want to start nerding out into it, you can adjust the Bezier curve, like the linear action,
How it moves,
and so you can start setting all these little minor details, and you could do a movement over the course of a 2 to 3 second animation, where in the hand drawn or physical process would have taken upwards of days. It gets knocked down to minutes. So that compounds over time as they route wrote automation into After Effects. So everything from physics engines to particle generators to JavaScripting and coding, where you could write the physics of the motion of your animations. They started implementing in 3D space and shading and articulating shadows in certain ways, what could interact with what, how lights interact with scenes,
That's
how it
insane.
interacts with other.
This is all AI. I think
It's not AI.
it is an
It's automation.
but is that not what AI is?
No,
at the
that's-
grassroots of it. It's automating things.
That's where I think AI has a marketing problem, because it's not intelligent. It's just working off of algorithms.
I have another
I
analogy
think,
for you.
Well, I think that's probably part of like what people are afraid of, is that they are under the perception of it's auto intelligence, and they are afraid. I think the biggest concern, and when people talk about it, it's like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs away.
Well, before we get to that, I want to offer this thought to you.
Okay.
In that, is it intelligent? Look at the technology for autofocus in cameras.
Yeah.
Where it started, you never had autofocus. And then like the late 70s, 80s or whatever, your 35 millimeter consumer cameras had autofocus. And it was just a matter of you hit the button, it focuses, takes a shot. Now there's eyeball tracking.
Face tracking.
And it tracks your eye and it locks on your eye. And if the eye goes off screen and then comes back, it knows that was the eye that it was on.
Right.
That's intelligent based. I would call that intelligent based autofocus.
I wouldn't call it intelligence in the sense of like a general intelligence. It's based on existing
that's
information.
programmable.
Yeah, that's programming. So like it knows what an eye looks like.
But it's not learning.
It's not learning. It's
Okay.
it's a set number of codes. Like I guess the best way I can explain how algorithms work is take something that everybody knows, like a video game controller. So like a system is constantly running the same code over and over and over again. It's just like if you ever heard it's like running lines of code. So it's running even a video game is running a bunch of lines of code over and over and over again, where it's looking for a yes or a no.
Yeah.
That's what binary code is.
Right.
It's looking for like on and off. So everything is off until I press the X button. And then it's saying, okay, it's cycling through the code. It's like, the X button's still on. Okay, let's recycle the code. Is the X button still on? Yes, let's recycle the code. And so that's telling your character, the X button says move forward. And then if the X button is still going and the O button is pressed at the same time, it's like, okay, we're moving forward. The X button's still pressed, so we're moving forward. The O button's, I got to jump now. And so like that's what it's doing.
That makes
But
sense.
it's that on like a compounded level. So it's saying like,
Over and over again, really, really fast.
Am I looking
all
at
the time.
Am I looking at an eye? What's the image that I'm looking for? Let me assess all the data around this preset area that I'm looking for. Where is that in reference to what it was here? It's over here. It's just taking existing information and it's doing exactly what it's told to do.
Which is what like ChatGPT does. But
Except
it doesn't.
ChatGPT takes another step further, and based on all the input from the millions of people that go onto it, learns how to better answer the questions that it's given.
So is
Kind of. I
is
wouldn't
Chat-
say it's not learning. It's just adding to that algorithm. So that's where like the whole marketing.
So it's
thing-
not learning.
It's not learning. It's not intelligence. It's adding to the equation. It's adding variables to the equation to make the equation better.
That's why it sounds so like corporate. Like when you're using ChatGPT, like for emails or like a bio or
Yeah.
whatever, it's very like
Corporately
it's very
worded.
proper.
So here's an example of like like what everybody considers an AI to what an intelligence actually is. So it takes something like an AI image generator, and you could type into the prompt Abraham.
Which did not work for me in Photoshop, by the way.
Abraham Lincoln playing a drum set at Wimbledon Soccer Stadium with Kiss in front of a crowd of 8 million people. It's gonna generate an
Rock
image
on,
of
Abe.
Abraham Lincoln playing a drum set at Wembley Stadium, and you can have that there, and you yourselves could picture that. You know what Abraham Lincoln looks like. You
Yeah.
know what Kiss looks like. You know what a soccer stadium looks like. You know what 8,000
You know what
people
Wembley
look
looks like.
So, but here's where AI falls short. If I say, I want you to picture the most beautiful song you've ever heard, I want you to picture yourself playing your favorite instrument, playing that song to somebody who you admire in a place you remember most.
Emotion, empathy,
Yeah.
all those feelings.
The things that the thing that you can come up with, that you can process with intelligence, you know your image, and my image is going to be completely different
Right.
because we all have different experiences.
Yeah.
And because
And perceptions
and
and-
because like a computational algorithm doesn't have opinions. It doesn't know what the best song that it feels is.
Right.
It doesn't know what the most ideal place that it feels is.
Right.
Like that's the human element that's missing.
Well, and we've talked about this before. AI, like we did a Q&A and somebody asked about, do we feel like in our industry, AI is going to take our jobs? And we said absolutely no. And I said that because of what you just said. There's no emotion behind AI because it's
Right.
not, I mean,
It's a great
an iRobot that actually was a thing. They learned and had dreams, but I don't see that happening. That's not, I don't think it's a real thing.
I mean, it could be.
It could be, but right now,
decades down, but probably not in our lifetime.
not in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So because of that, it will never take a job that is inherently based on opinions, emotions, empathy, those kind of feelings that you just can't just know.
Right. It's a
Right.
great supplemental tool. And that's why I keep saying it's not intelligent. It's like it's an algorithm. It's something where just same thing with After Effects. I can say track this camera, and it'll go through a whole scene. It'll give me little data points associated with that, and then it's up to me to assign like what I wanted to pick and what I wanted to assign where. And then like the automation will go in with like putting the shadows as to where I associate my things, but it's still up to me to build a scene.
Yeah.
Like the scene that I want to see, the scene that I think other people are going to see. And then I think the same thing goes for script writing. It's like I know the writers are on strike, actors are on strike right now, and that a lot of that draws back to people assuming that ChatGPT and all these things are intelligent, that they're going to write these fantastic scripts, and they write
Based on what they already have been told.
They write great baselines. I've used baselines from ChatGPT to develop out scripts and titles and stuff, and it gives you great foundational ideas. And from
Sorry.
There's an Aussie
There's
with
an
a tail
Aussie
outside.
with a tail outside. It's like seeing a unicorn. Sorry.
Anyway, sorry.
But from the script writing side, if it's constantly presented to people that don't really understand that it's not intelligent, that it is just a tool, and they keep saying, oh well, this tool can write all of our media for it, then you're just going to get like baseline everything.
Yeah, and my question again would be, if it's writing scripts and stuff, like, can they add those emotional scenes and things like that?
They can if it's been
Previously,
something that they have already been programmed to know what it is and have heard it and know it before, so they can adapt what they're trying to write
so
to that.
The way that AI works is it's never going to make anything new.
Right.
Which is why lawyers that I know of have talked about this, and that if you're going to use these ChatGPT and AI things for your business, you have to be very careful, because this is like gray area in terms of copyright infringement.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
So you gotta tread lightly, because it's not. We're not.
Because it's
very-
all been programmed.
We're not very far off from massive lawsuits coming in.
So maybe another correlation on this. You've heard the term content creator and content aggregator.
Yes.
Wait, differentiate them.
Creator is
So
somebody.
content creator is somebody who makes new stuff. A content aggregator is like a BuzzFeed.
They share everybody
I knew.
else's
I just wanted to make
content.
sure that other people
So
know.
So like in our industry, we're content creators.
Yeah.
Love Stories TV
It's
is a content aggregator.
yeah.
So think about like what I'm not putting down one over the other. There's room for both to exist in their own space,
Yeah.
and to like own their own space. But when it comes to like something that you're truly fond of, I can listen to Led Zeppelin's greatest hits over and over and over and over and over again, nonstop. 50, 100, 150 times cycling through the thing. I'm going to listen to BuzzFeed's breakdown of Led Zeppelin's top 10 songs once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
Because, if you want to hear something that's genuinely like created from the heart, you hear it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear somebody say like, when John Bonham started playing the cowbell on this song, everybody thought it was amazing. Listen, and then you like listen to 7 seconds of it because that's all they can play before they hit a copyright strike. And then they come back in and they're like, and that's when they played it in London. Like it's interesting information, but it's not like something where I'm gonna like go like, hey Alex, you got to listen to this thing over and over again. I got a playlist full of BuzzFeed videos that I listen to nonstop.
Yeah.
Got a playlist of BuzzFeed.
Could you imagine?
But that's the difference between like creating something that like has that human element to it versus like just taking something that already exists and repackaging it so you can kind of resell the same thing. And that's where I feel like AI TV scripts would be. So you'd have like all these, there is this kind of massive need for content right now in the TV space with Hulu and Disney and Netflix and HBO Max and all these things that just like need to produce stuff to stay relevant. But if they go down this route where it's like, okay, let's just have this intelligence take everything that kind of was successful in the past and suck it all in and, crap out whatever we can and maybe have like one writer on staff to do touch up. And then it's like, okay, get out of here because we paid you your $50. Then it's just going to be like, you're going to go from
it's in the same stuff over and over again.
Everybody's saying like, hey, have you seen Westworld? Or hey, have you seen Stranger Things? Insert like latest greatest thing here.
Yeah.
They're not really going to be like this rewatchable thing because it's just all the same regurgitated content over and over and over and over
And it'll get
again.
to a point where nobody wants to watch it because it is just regurgitated content.
Yeah.
And like we've already seen in the past, it was especially like when you and I talk about like our obsession with comic book movies and how noted corporate interference can tear things down. Like the Zack Snyder Justice League, how that kind of got caught in corporate hell because they were like, Avengers was fun, let's bring on the Avengers guy and have him write it up and make it kind of like a fun family friendly thing, and because that's what worked for them. But like what they were doing is taking something that wasn't that and then injecting something that they thought worked, and then it
worked for them, so why wouldn't it work for us? We're superheroes.
And it just ended up kind of being a bomb. And I feel like even Marvel, I love all the Marvel properties right now, but they're also kind of like in this...
They're in a limbo space.
Yeah, they're in a limbo
right
space where it's like, this kind of worked here. Let's just keep throwing it at this. And like all that like joy that kind of went into it is kind of turning stale because it seems like they're following like a structure as opposed to bringing in
more creative ideas.
Yeah, new ideas and developing, like taking things and spinning it in a new way, of bringing in that human element to make it unique.
So in what areas of just like life or the industry do you think that AI is being the most useful?
I can answer this. I had a thought about this.
Oh, go for it.
So in our industries, I mean, we're inherently in a creative industry. So I don't think that AI will ever truly replace the people in our industry just because...
No, it's impossible, in my opinion.
You lose that creative touch, like you just said.
Yeah.
However, there are industries that I feel will 100% be taken over, and I think I would say it's for the good because, not to get political, but like the entry-level jobs that people are not wanting to work anymore because of the low pay. Like, for example, you can program a robot to cook a burger and put it on a sandwich and bag it up and put it on a tray to serve to somebody out a window. That's all things that don't take any really what's the word I'm thinking of? It's very programmable. Like, there's a way to do it specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just ask Five Guys.
Just ask Five Guys? Yeah, that's how they
They have a very specific,
way to cook their burgers.
But also, they are delicious, and I think I want them for lunch
Anyway,
today.
I digress. Things that like that and industries like that are 100% the same, are supposed to be the same every time.
Yeah.
There's
Quality
just
control.
A way to do it. Those kind of industries I could see in the future just being totally automated. And I think there are some fast food restaurants that are actually working on that.
For the creative industry, I think it's the distributed tasks. So
Kind of like the filler task, like what you mentioned before.
Yeah, like
right?
things that we kind of take for granted now that used to be like very highly skilled, like everything from like, go all the way back to the beginning of film. I mean, you had guys who like meticulously knew how to crank a camera to make sure it was, and then they like invented a system that
did it for you.
Did 24 frames, exactly opening the shutter. Was that guy like, oh, they're taking my job, and like automation's going to kill the industry.
Thank God, I don't have to crank this thing.
But if that was the only skill that guy had, honestly, that's kind of on him.
Yeah.
But when automation happens like that, just because the way, like, we learn a lot of history as footnotes. So, it's like the American Revolution happened, and then the Industrial Revolution happened, and then the Great Depression happened. Like, all these things didn't just happen. It wasn't like, one day America was going along and then boom, the Great Depression. Things happen over time, and there are like signs to certain things happening. And whether those are major shifts or minor shifts or little things in an industry. So the guy who was like manually cranking film, if he wasn't paying attention to the fact that, an automated system was coming along and that eventually his job would be evolved into something else, then
that's on him.
That's on him. Yeah. And it's the same thing with us. If I can sit here and be like, well, I know After Effects and I know Cinema 4D the way that I know it, and that's never going to change, that is going to pigeonhole me into a position where nobody's really going to want to work for me if I'm not willing to evolve with the industry. As far as like the different automation and AI that's built into Photoshop and After Effects and Illustrator and all this, where it has like, image replacement or auto cutout or, I guess the best way to put it, so when I started in the industry in 2003, I would do individual promos or individual spots or individual shows, graphics, and it would take me anywhere on my own from like a week to 3 weeks, sometimes a month to put something together. And now with the way that the tools work and the foundation that I have constantly evolving with that software and those techniques, I can churn out an entire show's worth of graphics in an afternoon. I can.
It just helps you be more efficient.
Yeah, there are times where I can. My boss will come to me and say, "Here's a concept. Here are the points that we're trying to hit. Where the footage is, and I can take that concept, write a script, get in the voiceover booth, lay down a track, figure out what my music is, and then dig through footage, put together an animated package, and have something for them to go live the next morning." 20 years ago, these ideas, just because like of how these ideas would be insane. In 2002, 2003, like it cost anywhere from $250,000 just to establish a studio, just because of the amount of tech it took to have a nonlinear editing system. And then Final Cut Pro kind of came in and started compartmentalizing the tools. And now it's like the stuff that just ships on a MacBook that anybody can get for $900 is enough to do a podcast or enough to do stuff to put on YouTube. And I mean, like it's the barrier of entry that's disappeared is inspiring. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at these technical innovations that have been happening, and there's always somebody who's like, oh, this is going to take my job. Somebody thought like Final Cut was going to take their job, or somebody thought like, the different developments in After Effects was going to take their job. I remember when Apple had a conference on GarageBand. I remember that. And Logic. And so like Logic had drummers built into it, and they had like sampled all these professional drummers. And if you wanted it in GarageBand, you like paid an extra $20, and then you got this entire library of professional drummers. And all you had to do was like drag a wheel around. And like there were so many drummers who were like, I'm out of the job.
Well, we're not going to be drumming anymore.
Well, I do know we know some producers that program their drums into their tracks.
But that didn't replace the drummers.
It didn't replace drummers.
No, like, it just it enhances elements, and sometimes if you can't, it's.
Well, what it did was it took, like, you don't need a college degree in production to get into production. You don't need to spend 2 years as an unpaid intern at a marketing firm to get into these things anymore. Like the barrier of entry is practically, like it's not gone. You still have to have to deal with the barriers of social media algorithms of getting your stuff out there. But like the barrier of entry of making things is gone. So somebody who's like capable of producing something great, so who's writing something great, who's animating something great, they can put it on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok, and that is going to be pushed to an audience that is going to like something like that, just simply through the use of keywords and tagging. And you can really make it on your own right now, just with the tools that are available in the baseline machinery and the free distribution methods that are out there.
Right.
And I think, like, I don't have an answer for what the next level of that's going to be. It's probably going to be in 4D space. It's probably going to be in augmented reality space. There's probably going to be new levels of interaction that are going to involve your hands or your feet or your tongue or your nose or whatever. Like, people are going to come up with with weird stuff. And some of that's going to stick. And I'm excited to see how many more barriers of entry that takes away. Because with those barriers of entry gone, like if all that stuff was still there that kept people from getting into this industry, we wouldn't have the Youngs on YouTube. We wouldn't have Legal Eagle. We wouldn't have Film Theory. We wouldn't have Gary V. We wouldn't have we wouldn't have Joe Rogan. We wouldn't have all these people that, you know, a lot of people gravitate to as these people are super influential. And this person gives me great advice. We wouldn't have 18 paragraph long text about why my life is so miserable before I can see a casserole recipe.
Gosh, I hate that.
They have the jump to the recipe button. They have the jump to the recipe button.
The jump to the recipe button is equivalent to me as the skip intro button on Netflix that all the other places have finally adapted, and I am thankful for that.
Okay, you know what though? At least, I would say like 80%. Maybe not even that. I would say maybe 90% of like the recipes that I cook from are from Half Baked Harvest. Please sponsor us. But Tegan's amazing. And she obviously does blogs and stuff with her recipes, and she does have the jump to the recipe button. But what I've learned is like, I actually enjoy reading her food blogs with the recipes because sometimes she puts little nuggets in there that she doesn't mention in the directions. Like
little chicken nuggets.
And also like, I don't know if everyone is like this because I'm partial to Half Baked Harvest, so I just read those and not the other ones. But it teaches me more about like why the butter needs to be browned a certain way, or like
it's educational.
Yeah, I mean, which is the point. But I think some people are like, I've had a terrible week and I just want to eat some yummy soup, and so like they talk about like their kids.
Jump to the recipe.
Yeah, jump to the recipe.
No. Well, I had one
Digress.
other anecdote
Tangent.
on automation, and I think you might get a kick out of this because you'll have a foot in this game. So back in 2016, I jumped early on the prosumer drone thing.
Yep.
In an effort to like try to get ahead there. Long story short, it failed and I sold the thing, but it like. Getting the initial equipment, I want to say was around like $5,500. It was
an Inspire one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a pretty steep investment. It was a cool thing.
I think it was humongous.
Yeah, it was a monster, and it was like super
You just
stable.
like wanted to play with it for fun.
No, I
wanted to make money.
I wanted to make money from it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But at the time, like so the equipment.
Now everybody has one.
Yeah, DJI made the equipment like super innovative and easy to use at the time. You had to have like 2 controllers, 1 flyer, 1 person controlling the camera.
It wasn't automated like it is now.
It wasn't automated. You didn't
When
have.
was this? When was this?
2016.
16, yeah.
Yeah, so you didn't have all this automated tech built into it. And also at the same time, the FAA didn't have
any kind of restrictions.
Yeah, the 707 thing set up. So when I tried several times to like get legit with the FAA, and I had to like fill out this paperwork that talked about, you know, how many engines are on my craft and where are they located and where will the co-pilot sit and where am I keeping my fire retardants and manuals.
You needed to get an actual pilot license? Was that you that I talked to about that?
Well, that was the process. You had to register your aircraft.
Yeah,
it wasn't getting a pilot's license. You had to register your craft.
Insane.
As if it was like
because you're operating a commercial aircraft.
737, basically.
I mean, I mean, I get that, but like, it's not the same.
But all that to say, like within so it's 2023, so 7 years. Within 7 years, they went from having like a prosumer grade drone that was like, it shot great footage. It had great maneuverability, but you had to have multiple people to operate it. You had to have some level of technical proficiency. Now I could walk into a Costco, buy a DJI Mavic for what, like $750,
And it fits in your pocket.
It fits in your pocket.
in your pocket.
I open it up. I don't have to like, on mine, you had to like install the propellers. You had to do this whole flight
And it's just
setup.
like you open up, it's ready to go.
Yeah, you open it up, you set it down, and then you can say like, I want you to do a 360 rotation over the course of 3 minutes, starting at 50 feet away, moving to 500, and this is like the speed of your rotation.
And this is where my subject
follow
is.
follow my remote controller, and then all you have to do is kind of like palm the thing, and you can walk down a field, and it just does the thing for you.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Like that took away so much of a barrier of entry that now anybody with like, anybody from real estate to just some kids doing skate videos can get this thing and make amazing footage. And what you get out of it, like what we got out of that is a wealth of aerial footage that just would not have existed.
Yeah.
Like
Before that, you had to use helicopters and
I remember
cinema cameras and
like
Y'all are aging
early
yourselves.
mid 2000s, like the cost of
wasn't
getting
that long ago.
yeah, mid 2000s, it was like the cost of getting a pilot and a helicopter and like let alone getting a helicopter that had a gyroscopic rig that balanced the thing out, and still your footage was still kind of like and you still had to go through like a whole level of post-processing. And now like you do drone stuff for your weddings where you're getting like these beautiful shots of the venue and lakes and mountains that just was not accessible to anybody less than 10 years ago.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What are those drones called that I'm like...
FPV drones.
I'm obsessed with
Those
those
were
videos on TikTok.
Those were based off of race drones initially, but they put a camera on it, and now they can maneuver those things.
What are they called again?
FPV, first person view. FPV,
PV.
first person
Okay.
view drones. So you put goggles on.
Yeah.
And you are essentially flying as if you're in the drone.
It's insane. Okay, if you've never seen these videos on TikTok, just look it up. It's so aesthetic, like it's so pleasing, and I watch them and my heart rate goes down. I've checked on my Aura Ring. I love them. They're so cool, and I want to get them for weddings. And Alex tells me that's so extra and unnecessary. But
it is, but I also I want
like,
to do
how
it, but I would
dope
need
would
to
we
hire
be?
somebody to
But,
use
like,
the drone
how
that day.
cool-
You're like buzz the groom.
Yeah.
literally, how cool would we be if we did that though?
I mean, I
Like,
think Films by Stanton is actually working on that. I think he has
Stanton,
one.
come on, chill out. Teach
I mean,
me.
he films in volcanoes.
I mean,
So
anyway, my question is are those, because you have to put the goggles on, it's first person view, is that an AI thing, or is that just like
I
a
think that's
camera
just
thing?
more
There's-
advancing technology.
Yeah, there's tech that goes because you need a low latency radio frequency feed.
Yeah.
I know with the drone that I had, like there was a solid like 1 millisecond to 1 second delay. So we'd get.
I
I'd get
can't
an
see
angle
how
and
there
I
could
would
be a
talk to
delay
my-
with this though.
I'd get the angle that I wanted, and I would talk to my camera op, and it's like, okay, we'd kind of pre-plan the moves, and everything would just like have this 1 second delay to it. But with those first-person view things, is like they're racing through stadiums and abandoned buildings and stuff. They need like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second of latency.
Alex, you said that it has to be 2 people on that?
No, you have to have a spotter because you're wearing goggles.
So so like the spotter just stands there and like watches the drone?
Basically, yeah.
But, like, what if it's, like, far away?
You're supposed to. I think there's a lot of people that don't do that.
One of the guys that
But-
I follow on TikTok, he gets like, he does like landscapes and like, we're talking like Iceland and like amazing like structure. But he gets like so close to rocks. I'm like, there's got to be sensors and stuff that tell you like.
So one thing you can do is pre-program a route. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be with a first-person thing. You can take the drone up in the air. So like get 3 or 4 batteries. On your first battery, you take the drone up in the air. You set your first key point. You set your next key point. Get as close as you want to something as you feel comfortable. Set your next key point. Set your next key point.
Oh, I didn't know
And then like come back, land the thing, switch the battery out, and then
tell it to-
say
tell it
run
to fly that
program.
same route.
And you can tell it how fast you want to run that route, and it'll just
Yeah, I did not know that. That's cool. Okay, anyway, your homework is to watch those videos because they're insane.
I think the moral of this whole story, this whole podcast, this whole everything we're talking about is just view it as more advancing technology, because from the beginning of time, as technology advances, jobs are disrupted in a way that you have to pivot a little bit, and yes, some people lost jobs because they were replaced, but did they prepare themselves for that? And I think now it's more advanced than it's ever been, but the concept isn't any different.
So the only
Well,
thing
and it's ultimately just going to help.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd add to that, and just to be wary of, is fear drives news cycles. If a thing that's going to grab everybody's interest in our industry, isn't going to be like, Adobe comes out with automated photo editor that can replace clouds with a click. But if somebody comes up with a news article that says creatives better beware because Adobe's creating a tool that will replace you altogether, like that's something that's going to that's going to draw you into it.
Because you won't stop thinking about it.
And ultimately, like, they do want to, it's a way of conveying information. I feel like it's a really backhanded way of conveying information, but ultimately when you're clicking through to a news site, if you're clicking away from a Facebook or clicking away from Instagram to go to somebody else's news site, what they're doing is driving you there for some kind of revenue on their end. So you can do that any way you want. You can be disingenuous about it. You can be informative about it. If the goal is to get somebody to your site, I prefer to find things that are being genuine about how things are advancing, how this technology could be, great. Because you remember when Apple came out with its cinema display, how many articles did you see that was like, Apple thinks everybody is an absolute idiot because they're selling a $900 stand? Nobody talked about how the display that they were selling that was $6,000 was comparable to 5-figure displays on the market. Like the cheapest one you can get with the same specs was probably around $12,000 to $15,000. It was like, hey, let's concentrate on this flub because anybody who was buying that had an articulating arm anyway. Like the stand was just kind of there for them to recoup the cost of that much aluminum and that much milling. Like that if you took 6 seconds to think about it, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm not going to buy it anyway. But that level of negative press in the creative industry, like, steered so many people away from potentially buying that as like a super affordable option for what it was. And, I see a few years down the road now that it's been in the market, like a lot of people are using it for what it's worth. Like that's an amazing color gamut and color scale. But that's where I would say to like anybody watching this, like if somebody's coming at you and saying like, this is going to destroy your world, this is going to take your job, this is going to ruin you, you just take that with like, a margarita sized grain of salt.
Yeah.
So not a tiny grain of salt, just it's a good grain of salt, but it's not rock salt for the road yet.
Like there's gonna be information in there, but like you got to make sure that you know where, like, you could evolve or die.
Right, exactly. And that's in everything. Something that we didn't talk about and I wanted to touch on real quick is the AI editor for photo editing.
Sponsor us. Imagine AI.
Imagine AI.
Was it like automate your cuts?
Why do you say sponsor us?
Because they sponsor people and I want their
Okay,
money.
but I've never used it, so that's not fair. I'm not going to recommend something I haven't used.
Actually,
you can trust us.
John Branch uses them.
I know. So
he swears by it.
So that is something that, and the reason why I haven't done it is because I've heard that it takes a while because you have to like input all of your editing settings and your presets and your profiles and like all of this stuff. And it learns based off of all these things that you've uploaded, it learns your editing and edits your galleries for you, which is like, and some people could see that as a way of like, oh, it's taking part of our job away. I mean, I just see it as like, that's one less thing off my to-do list.
That's taking away the jobs of actual editors because the process is exactly the same as it is when you hire a human editor, because you have to send them your presets, you have to send them edited photos and everything like that.
And you still have to do quality control.
So that they learn what you're looking for and then they do it and then send it back and you make adjustments. This just does all that same stuff in a fraction of the time.
I really
Yeah,
do want to give it a decent go at it, but because I'm a
macro
control freak, I
automators
don't.
have been around. I've been using macro automators for like 15 years in
Yeah.
Photoshop and whatnot. Where it's like I just want to build like a whole preset and
Yeah.
like hit go and it'll. But you're right. The QC has to be there. You have
Yeah.
to.
That's what a LUT is. A LUT is a micro automator, essentially.
I'm just curious of how.
The audio sync technology is a micro automator. Like before that, you had to line up your audio and your video manually, or use time code.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just those little things. Sorry.
No,
interject.
it's okay. I'm just curious of how it does with like different lighting scenarios, because we might have 15 different lighting scenarios on a wedding day.
Well, that's probably something where it's just like with ChatGPT. The more information you give
Yeah.
it, the more it can pull from.
Yeah.
I want
if
to ask
you-
John about it, but
And if you change your style, then like it's not going to know that right away.
Right.
You might end up having to build a completely new profile, or maybe
Yeah.
you have like a 2023 profile versus a 2024 profile, and
Right.
so like you say like I want to do this like my old style, and so then you have like that profile information that you throw.
And
in.
But
I will
the turnover for an automated based editor, as far as the editor themselves, is non-existent. Whereas you go through a company like who have you used in the past?
photographers at it.
Photographers edit uses humans, and what if the person you've been working with for 3 years, all of a sudden isn't there? So now you have to teach a totally different person that
Well,
same style.
That's not really.
It is though, because with Imagine
Not
AI,
with, not with photographers at it, because you upload your profiles and your presets and stuff. It's much easier than you think.
well, I'm sure they might be actually using Imagine AI at this point. If they're not, that
I don't think so, because you can email with your editor.
at the grassroots of this is you can lose a person that is an editor.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're giving information to this automated thing, it's going to always give you your results, and those results are going to get better the longer you do it.
Yeah,
Period.
I want to give it a try for sure. Because I know it takes so much time to input all of this data and information. It's not anyway on my priority list. Maybe like in the beginning of next year, I'll play around with it. But I've also been getting kind of like funky with my edits and like cropping in like probably what most photographers shouldn't do, but just to add like a little like, I don't know,
change your
edgy
composition a
look
little
and
bit.
like, yeah. And I'm curious of like, I would highly doubt that like Imagine AI can do that, because, I'm taking like a really wide photo and like just cropping in like so close to maybe just get like the ring on the person that I'm photographing.
With a little bit of noise.
With like noise, and that's done intentionally for it to look like an old time photo or like whatever the case might be. And they're not going to know that I want to do that on
Right,
that photo.
and that comes back down to the whole thing we talked about with the creativity and the opinion. And
Yeah.
a lot of the creative industry is opinion based and what you like and what your client wants.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's not proper or very programmable set of rules,
Yeah.
AI isn't necessarily going to be able to do it.
I mean, using Imagine AI would save time, as in like editing the whole gallery, and then I would have to go back and like make
Do
sure
those
it's
things.
correct, and then do crops and things like that and switch things up after everything's edited. So it would be helpful for one step, but it wouldn't be able to do the whole thing.
And another thing to consider is that just the public perception of media is dynamic.
Yeah.
Like what's popular now wasn't popular 3 years ago. What's popular 3 years ago wasn't popular 6 years ago. I think everything moves in a cycle. Everything evolves. And like the way that we watch videos, the way that we like pictures, the way that we
Yeah.
make memes.
Yeah.
So a year and a half from now, everything that we're writing into automation is just going to be like last week's news. You're going to have to write new scripts. You're going to have to come up with new ways to develop the media.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come up with new ways to produce it, and ultimately it'll streamline whatever new thing it is. But like we can't just it's not beneficial to like sit here and fret that somebody's going to come up with a way to make TikTok subtitles that are really popular now, when 6 months from now
It'd
somebody's
be
using
something
something completely different, or
Right.
get rid of them altogether.
Yeah.
Adapt and overcome.
And I think that's a good way to end this. And one thing to keep in mind, I believe, is especially nowadays and the advent of social media, the loudest people are always the haters.
That's
And
true.
Those are the people that are
The vocal minority.
The vocal minority are the ones that you're going to hear, and those are the people that are bashing on AI. So I feel like just ignore the noise, do your own research in the industry that you're in, and figure out if you need to adapt, how soon you need to adapt, and what that looks like for you.
And at the end of the day, whatever your career or industry that you're in, I mean, you don't just do what you're comfortable with. Take it one step at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
No, this has been a great talk. I appreciate you guys having me on.
I hope y'all nerded out over this because I'm just over here nodding my head, like listening to Joe. He's so smart, guys. I don't think you understand. I mean, maybe you do now after.
There's that Mustang
Jeez
again.
Louise. Maybe you do now after this podcast, but he's very, very intelligent.
So, with
Actually,
that,
Joe might just be AI. He
Joe's a
might
robot.
just be
Joe's a robot.
I've been found out.
He's a robot advocating for artificial intelligence. That's what it is. If you have any thoughts or comments or questions for Joe or anything about this topic, put it in the comments on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, go to the YouTube video link.
You know, something that we haven't mentioned is, we post like snippets on Instagram and stuff of each one of our podcasts. So you can always like pop in questions over on Instagram. You can DM us, comment. We would love to interact with you guys. And we're more on like active on Instagram.
Well, her.
I am. Like the conversation, I think, is like pretty active over there.
Yeah.
So
Just wherever you see content like this, just talk.
Yeah.
And if you enjoyed having Joe on, let us know. We can have Joe back because Joe is a wealth of knowledge on lots of things. So we can talk about lots of things.
yeah, maybe we should just have him as a reoccurring guest.
Want to be a recurring guest?
I do like to just jabber on with jargon. So.
like when Steve Irwin would go on the night shows and bring animals. That can be Joe. You come on the podcast and
bring my coffee and
Doesn't
random
his
knowledge
son do
about the
that
industry.
now?
Yeah.
His son does that. What's his name?
I don't remember. Something Irwin.
Something Irwin. Oh my gosh.
I think his daughter's name is Bendy.
Cute. Or weird. I don't know.
You be the judge.
You be the judge.
Anyway, thanks for watching or listening,
Yeah.
and we will see you next time.
Peace.